Good afternoon and welcome to Pinhole Quilting. I'm Liz Holpin, my husband Pete is behind the camera, and we're doing this Facebook Live from our Pinhole Quilting showroom. It's a fantastic space that we have here, and every time we do classes or demos in here, I think how lucky we are to be able to show these lovely machines off in such a nice environment. I think Pete's just counting how many we've got up in here at the moment.
We've got 14 machines set up here at the moment.
14 machines. I can't use them all simultaneously, unfortunately.
Nowhere else like it in Europe.
Nowhere else like it. We are unique in Europe. And it's fantastic to be able to show the range of Handi Quilter machines that we have here. We've got some sit-downs and we've got our stand-up. And we call them now movable and stationary as well, to sort of show that actually, in fact, the movable ones that we're going to demonstrate on today are the ones that you normally stand up at. But I'm sitting on a saddle stool, so you can actually sit down and quilt at these as well. So that's why we call them, in preference, movable machines, as opposed to the ones that you would sit at like your domestic machine that we call stationary. So not just stationary, but also you can stand up at them. So that's why we use movable and stationary. The Capri, for example, has, and the Sweet 16 on the new Insight table, can actually come up to a working height where you would be able to stand up, very Scandi style. I think they do a lot of talking in, well, I've only seen it in Borgen, right? But the Scandinavians quite often stand up and have meetings, and this is what you can do on the Capri. So, very cool. Now we've addressed the issues of stationary and movable, let's just talk about a few things that have happened this week. Pete and I went up to Manchester, and it's the Wirral, isn't it, Pete, that we were at?
We were in the Wirral as well, yes.
We were in the Wirral as well. And we installed a Pro Stitcher on an Amara in a lovely room for a customer up there. And I think she's going to do very well with it. She was certainly picking it up very quickly. Now, someone who gets a Pro Stitcher from us, they get a couple of sessions on Zoom where I go through a lot of the settings and take you through the exercises and make sure that you're happily able to quilt away. The other thing that we did was we dropped off a Pro Stitcher Lite for a very keen customer who, I think she contacted you on Friday, didn't she? Shall I mention?
She contacted me on Saturday, I think.
Saturday.
And we delivered it on Monday.
There you go. What service, eh, Pete? So she'll be setting up her Pro Stitcher Lite on her Moxie. Pro Stitcher Lite and the Pro Stitcher Premium are both very useful and very nice upgrades to have for many of the machines that are movable machines. The Pro Stitcher Lite for the Moxie came out earlier this year, and it's been really well received. In fact, one of the ladies who was helping us on our stand, both at Festival of Quilts and at Harrogate, lovely Carol, has got a Pro Stitcher Lite, and she's been quilting away. In fact, I think she's got to get more quilts from people because she's quilting them faster than they can finish the quilts. Isn't that good? And you normally worry about the fact you haven't finished your quilt tops off. Well, Carol's doing it with absolutely no holds barred. She is just going for it. Now, we've got some things that we wanted to talk to you about as well in terms of training and events that we've got here at the showroom. So on the 19th of November, we've got Stuart Hillard's open day, 2 sessions, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And we're delighted that Stuart's coming back because the last time we did it, it was very, very hot, and I don't anticipate the 19th will be anywhere near the dizzy heights of the low 30s that we had at the time. I think the following week it was in the 40s, well, the high 30s and 40s. So Stuart will be doing a trunk show, and we'll be doing demonstrations of the machine. So even if you're, if you're thinking about a long arm, obviously it's a perfect environment in which to come. There's no pressure on you, just to have a go and see how inspiring you find Stuart when he talks about how he uses Handi Quilter to finish more quilts. The other thing is about that session that when I first said that it was available on our website, somebody said I can't order it. And I realized there's a little button that's hidden where you can untick it and say, don't allow add to basket. And unfortunately, I hadn't ticked that little button. I'd had it sitting there for a while. So I'm afraid if you went to try and book on it and you couldn't, that was my fault. I fixed it. So if you want to go on and come along, we'd love to see you on the 19th of November. Morning session is 9 o'clock for 9:30 talk start with Stuart. And the afternoon session is 1 o'clock with the talk starting at 1:30. Session time is about 3 hours. So we hope you can join us. It would be lovely to see you. And it'll be a really nice event where hopefully, because it's on a Saturday, it'll be easier for perhaps you to travel to the area. The other event that's a rescheduled date, the 3rd to the 4th of November, is Telene Jeffrey, our Handi Quilter ambassador from South Africa, is coming over, and she's doing the free motion quilting, applique, and how do I quilt it session. 2 full-on days that will be very, very techniques based and having a play with the machine, real fun sessions. How do I quilt it will be, you bring along a quilt top and we'll discuss it. And I know from sessions that I've done in the past with Jamie Wallen and with Nancy Christopherson, who was a Handi Quilter educator and runs the Longarm Quilt Academy in Dallas-Fort Worth. Those kind of people who've quilted many quilts for others, and Telene is definitely in that category, can give you great insight as to how you'd quilt a quilt. So we'd love it if you could join us. All the details are online, but you can also click to it from the email newsletter I sent out today. Anything you want to add at this point before I go without taking a breath, Pete? I can have a bit of coffee.
No, you can have a sip. I'll just say hello to a few people. We haven't got many people commenting so far, but Val Brooks has made it, as she said.
Hey, today. Well done, Val.
Hi, Val. Glenys in Kent says that
hi, Glenys.
It's blowing up a gale here.
Yes.
Oh, incidentally, we have an installation to do in Kent in the next 6 weeks or so. Dates yet to be arranged.
That's right.
But we will be asking if anybody in the area is interested in getting their machine serviced. And if we can, we'll try and fit that in on that trip as well. So just make a mental note of that. And when we have more details, we'll let you know.
Yes. We try and combine other people when we're visiting an area if we can.
And last but not least, Mari from Darwin is with us again.
Hey, Mari from Darwin.
She says she has to watch as often as she can this month. Because once it gets to daylight saving, she might really struggle.
Okay, yes.
With the time difference.
The time difference, yeah. Yes, that's true. That's true. And I'm just thinking, Mari, it's probably that time of year when you're going from the dry to the wet, isn't it? I think. I was traveling in Australia, and I'm trying to remember. I think it was this time of year. But when those storms come in, my goodness, it's a relief. I actually started dreaming about crocodiles at Annie Springs. Okay, now, that's they call it Gontropo. I definitely had a touch of that. It was so hot in Darwin.
Just say hello to Jennifer at Harmony Quilting. Hi, Jennifer. I've got somebody else's HQ16 in for service at the moment.
Yes, you're similar.
So you're not the only one.
Not the only one with a 16, Jennifer. I think they're also running it with a computerized system. I think they are, aren't they, Pete? I
can't remember.
Pass. He's going pass.
And Joe Lovell is with us as well.
Hi, Joe.
Lorraine Gray. The sun is shining. Wow.
That's good. And can I just say, Lorraine, wow, your quilt that you've done as a result of that online course with Beth Ann Namesh is superb.
Yes,
your beading treatment on the binding is unbelievable.
Time for you to start entering competitions, Lorraine.
It is, it is. If you need any more encouragement, we can give you that. We can give you that. Fabulous, absolutely fabulous. Okay, now we've got, the other thing that we've got is our foundation workshops. There's 2 on the 8th and 9th. One of them is full for stand-ups.
November.
8th and 9th of November. See, this is why Pete's here. 8th and 9th of November. One of them's full up for stand-ups. I think it's the 9th. The 8th has still got spaces, and we still have spaces on the rulers, feathers and fills that follows on from it, where we give you an introduction to the techniques of rulers, work, feathers and fillers. It's a good intro, and we hope you can join us for that. If you've done a foundation workshop in the past and you want to learn some more skills, we'll also be doing lots of thread play. It's almost like if you were to do a 2-day foundation workshop, the 2 days run together is a really good option. So if you're coming on the 9th and you fancy another day, stay on with us. We'd love it if you did. The other thing that we've got coming up is the Malvern Autumn Quilt Show, and it's a lovely event in the Malvern Showground at the 3 counties overlooking the Malvern Hills. We don't have at this time of the year the extra marquee, but it is such a nice show. We've got a big stand there. We'll take along some of our machines, quite a few of our machines, and come along, have a demo. If you're an existing Handi Quilter owner, come along and say hi. We love it when our customers come along to the stand. We'll have some Glide thread, I think, won't we, Pete? We'll take some along with us?
Yes, we will.
Yeah.
We'll have a limited range of accessories that we'll take with us, but certainly some of the thread packs and other threads as well. Yes,
and if you want to order anything else and want to pick it up at the show, then you can do that too. Just contact us and let us know. Right. On a more serious note, something to think about. If you are considering a new long arm, or if you have an existing long arm and you're thinking about either upgrading or getting a Pro Stitcher or Pro Stitcher Lite, do it sooner rather than later. I say that because I don't know whether you know what's happened. If you've not watched the news for the last week, then you won't know any of this. But the dollar and the pound have had some significant shifts this week. Quite frankly, it's been a bit of a ride on the foreign exchange markets. We are heavily influenced by the dollar, because that's where we buy our stuff from, is in the States. So that means that if you are considering a machine, it is quite likely the pricing will go up soon. Not only that, but Handi Quilter have announced price increases too. This is a result of components going up and the increased transportation costs. And basically, we know that there are a lot of factors feeding into pricing right now, which are putting a lot of pressure on prices, and we are not excluded from that. In fact, we are, because of the dollar, influenced by both of those factors simultaneously. As Pete, who's the accountant, pointed out to me, a number of our prices have not changed in the 5 years that we've been going. I can think, actually, Pete, of the bobbin case being a case in point. £63 is the current price. It's been that price ever since we started.
Yes.
Has it not? So many of these prices will have upward pressure on them. So it's not just machines, it's also accessories. So do not delay. Do not delay. We've got a special offer this week. Shall I talk about that now?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, why not? It feeds in nicely. Because to encourage you in your purchasing right now, rather than waiting until the prices go up and going, darn it, I wish I'd done that sooner, we have a free postage offer on from this week. It's available right now. Free postage over £30. So spend over £30 and your basket will automatically go down to zero. So this is the time to stock up. If you've been waiting to get your thread for your quilt project or to get a few rulers, then do not delay. It'll be on until this time next week. Now, the more exciting thing for those who are watching from overseas, because a lot of what I've talked about is really only applicable to our UK customers, what I'd like to do is give you a few more techniques-based things, because I know that this YouTube and Facebook post is increasingly seen by people who are not only existing Handi Quilter owners, but also considering a Handi Quilter. And I like to show the kind of things that we teach and when we're doing our foundation workshop, just little bite-sized morsels to give you an idea of how we teach the class. So, Pete, you've got any questions, comments?
No, not at the moment.
Great. When you come on our Pinhole Quilting Foundation Workshop, which is applicable to most people who've bought a Handi Quilter, you get a workbook. We actually print them properly now, so it'll actually be a properly printed workbook. I've just ordered them for the next class. And in here, it's a whole, let's see, 35 pages of information about your setup. It's about things like free motion quilting. Here we go, a little taster. That's some of the free motion quilting designs. All my own work. Well, I've copied them. Admittedly, none of them are unique, but they are my own drawings. Stippling, I mean, nobody's done that before, right? Okay, now, one of the things that we quite often get questions from, and a lovely lady called Kristen, who had her Moxie in August, said, I really don't know how to use the different types of stitch regulation. So I thought, that's a good idea. Let's go through that. That's what I'm going to do on Facebook Live today. And in these foundation workshop notes, you actually get a little table that tells you what your settings should be, or could be, for quilting. Of course, a lot of things are personal, and it depends on how fast you move the machine. But actually, a lot of the machines have very similar settings. So first of all, let's just explain what stitch regulation actually means and how it's done on the Handi Quilter machines. So on these, we actually have a very much a physical relationship between the machine moving and the machine deciding to go faster or slower so that your stitches stay the same length. And that physical relationship is through what's called an encoder. An encoder has a rubber wheel on it which moves backwards and forwards on the carriage or side to side. So backwards and forwards is the Y movement. Side to is the Y. For a moment I thought I got it wrong. Is the Y movement, and side to side is the X. And what that does is it converts a physical movement into a digital signal, sends it to the machine, so the machine knows whether to speed up or slow down, so that your stitch length stays the same. Now on the Moxie, we control everything through the handlebars. When we move to the next couple of machines, I'm going to show you where those encoders are at the back as well. On the Moxie then, we've got a screen at the front, but everything is done through a plus and a minus on the left and the right, needle up, needle down on the left, and start and stop on the right. So here, at the moment, on this little screen, we've got a setting, the little house, a C, needle up, needle down, which has got blue, which means it will stop in the needle down position, 9, and there's a little measure, so that means stitches per inch, and a speed thing which says 125, and that means stitches per minute. So 125 stitches per minute, or 2 every second, slightly more than 2 a second. And we can change the number of stitches per inch in this setting, which is called cruise or continuous mode. So stitches per inch can be changed from this screen, and I can just use them with my handlebars. So I'm going to press the plus, and it goes up all the way to a very small stitch of 18 stitches per inch.
So the higher the number, the smaller the stitch.
Yeah, because for every inch I've now got to get 18 stitches fitted within it. And I can reduce that number by pressing the minus on the left-hand handlebar until I can keep my finger on it, and it'll go all the way to the bottom, which is 4 stitches per inch or a quarter inch. The number you see at the bottom is what it's going to do when I pause. So now if I just press this button here on the right, it'll start sewing at 125 stitches per minute. It'll stop after 4 or 5 because it's got an auto cutout to stop you creating a little knobbly bundle of stitches or a bird's nest. But if I press that again, you'll see it stitches, and then if I move it, it's sewing fairly slowly because it's 4 stitches per inch. We'll do stitching in a moment, but I just want to explain the controls first. So let's increase the number of stitches per inch to something that we might do for quilting. So between 9 and 12 stitches per inch. I've used the plus button, press play, and now it stitches much faster. If I pause, it does 125 stitches per minute. I'm pausing, and I'm pausing. Okay, so that is the C mode, cruise or continuous. And there are times when we'll want to use that in particular. I'm just going to explain those after I've explained the modes, so just hang on to that information for now. The other modes that we've got on here, because it's easier for me to demo these things on another machine. Let's go into the menu again, and we'll change this type of stitch regulation from C. Okay, I'm going to select it by going into needle up, needle down, and I can page through these different ones. There's P, C, and M. P is precision. I select it with needle up, needle down, and it now just has 11 stitches per inch. So when I press play now, nothing happens. The little house on the menu's gone green, but nothing happens until I move it. This is precision. It literally is precise and means that it won't sew until I move the handlebars. As I move faster, it moves faster. Press stop, and the house goes to black. If I weren't to press stop, it would just sit there. If I move the frame slightly by touching it, you can see it's slightly moving, but otherwise completely stationary until I move it again.
So that can be a little bit dangerous because the machine is on, the house is green.
Yep.
The machine is on, but the needle's not moving. But if you put your finger down
if I were to put
the
my
needle,
look out, it's just moving.
Danger that you get finger.
See? That's how dangerous it is.
Trapped on the needle.
So that's precision. And the third type of stitch we can do on these machines is a manual stitch. Manual just means that you set the number of stitches per minute to a particular speed. And we can go smaller than that, but in the number, which means that it'll sew slower, down to 50, or we can go faster. So if I start, I can also use the handlebars as I'm moving the machine to increase the number of stitches per minute.
So that's 100, so that's slow.
750 now. $1,800 is the maximum speed on the Moxie. I'm going to say it's all about you. It is all about you. With the manual mode, depending on how fast you're moving your handlebars will determine the stitch length, because the speed is constant. Those encoders aren't on the X and the Y are not being referenced at all by the machine. It's all about how many stitches per minute. So we've got that, right? We've got cruise or continuous, we've got precision, and we've got manual. So let's see how we would use those different types of stitch regulation and how we set them slightly differently. First of all, on the Avante. So this machine is not one that we currently sell, but there are lots of people who've got this lovely machine out as our customers. And it's a very popular machine for second user systems. So let's just explain a few differences on the screen here. If you've got an Avante, this is what you'll be seeing. It's in regulated. It could be in manual. It's a touch screen, this one. So we go regulated, and we've got precision or cruise. So just the same descriptions as on the Moxie, but presented in a slightly different way. At the top here, we've got the number of stitches per inch, and we have exactly the same controls on the handlebars. So on here, I can go all the way up to 22. So there's a few more stitches per inch. So that's tiny, tiny, tiny. And I can go all the way down to 4 inches, which is a basting stitch. So that's the difference between the Avante and the Moxie, is basically on this one, I can do basting as well. Whereas on the Avante, we've actually got a basting stitch. In cruise, the other difference is instead of stitches per minute, I've got a percentage here. So it's a percentage of the speed of the machine, and 3% of 2,200 is 66, 67, something like that. Is that right?
Correct.
Hey, my mental arithmetic isn't that bad. Okay, so 3%, so similar to having, say, 50 or 50 to 100 on the Moxie. So let's just have a look at this. If I press the start button, I'm going to start in 4 again. Right, nothing much happens until, this is precision, until I move it. Go backwards and forwards. I can increase the number of stitches per inch. So let's put it up to the 11, like I had on the Moxie. Press play, it goes to green up here, a bit like the little green home. And that's 11 stitches per inch. So precision, again, I have to turn it off. It'll just stay there until I turn it off. Cruise, this is now going to sew slowly. On this one, it doesn't actually turn off. You could end up with the bird's nest. It's programmed on the Moxie to have an auto shut off, because they know that primarily the Moxie is going to be for people who've got the Moxie as their first long arm. And okay, on this one, we've got 3% and 11 stitches per inch. When I press stop, it will stop, and the display goes to red. Now if I go to manual, I've got a percentage instead of number of stitches per minute. So again, it's 4 times 2,200, 800 stitches per minute or something. And so I can start in that, and it'll just start sewing. I can increase the speed.
So Liz is increasing the speed using the handlebar. The needle is running at a constant speed. So
yep.
Your stitch length will depend upon how fast you're moving the machine.
And on here, I've got presets as well that I can press to go to my favorite speed settings. But most of the time, you bought a long arm. You probably want it in regulated, but there are circumstances in which manual is lovely. And you will learn to love manual as much as the other modes for certain types of stitch regulation. For certain types of quilting. So let's come around here. We're going to look at our third machine. Our third machine is the Simply 16. It's very similar to the Moxie in terms of stitches per minute, and but it's got a touch screen. So that's the main difference between that and this. Now, we talked about the encoders. And on this machine, I'm just going to show you where they are. So on the side of the machine, we've got the rubber wheel, and this is the encoder with a grey flat cable that goes into a little electronic board at the front here. And this is on a spring. The spring's underneath. Sometimes the spring, if you take the machine off your carriage, can come off, and you'll wonder why it's not pushing down. It's because your springs come off. It doesn't happen very often, but when people put this machine in the car, sometimes it comes off. The machine is basically moving backwards and forwards, and this little wheel is rotating, and that information is being passed through the grey cable to the board on the back of the machine. So this is one of the wheels. These carriage wheels are very smooth. It's a precision glide track, and it's got 4 wheels on the carriage and 8 on the studio frame here, or studio precision glide frame. Now at the back we've got this grey flat cable, and it goes all the way to the second encoder. So this is our X encoder. There's another little rubber wheel inside here, and if you walk around the back of your machine and you catch it and don't notice, you're going to find that your stitch regulation doesn't work. So Pete's going to dislodge that in a moment and show what effect that has. These two join up and go into the back of this electronics board here, so that the machine knows how fast or how slowly you're going. We've got the optional rear handlebars on this Simply 16 as well, and we've also got the same controls that we've got at the front. So we've got stitch regulation and we've got manual. In regulation we've got 2 options, and on this one it's got like a little rotating clock thing. That means precision, and this means cruise or continuous. So we can change this for different types of quilting. And what I'm going to do next is show you on this machine, because I've got some fabric on this one. Let's set this up then. First of all, we're going to start in that first mode that I showed you on the Moxie. So that was cruise or continuous mode. And in cruise or continuous mode, I'm going to set it initially for, well, I'm just going to refer to my notes here because I'm going to read this out. For most types of quilting, you'll probably be in precision, but some people like to have it running just slightly so that you're reminded that it's on. And I think that's a really good mode for the Moxie user, because it will cut off, it'll stop sewing anyway if you leave it running. It won't do that on the Simply. So if we want to have it just running slowly, we might have it set to say 100. I've got 11 stitches per inch. I'm going to secure my stitches, after bringing up my thread. It's set to stopping the needle down. Let's just start it in the needle down. Now, Pete, were you going to say?
Yeah, just a question from Val about the fact that we had no thread on the machines that you've just demonstrated. And in fact, Val, there were no bobbins or bobbin cases in those machines either. That was purely for demonstration purposes, of course. It has no impact on the stitch regulation, because the stitch regulation will work because it's monitoring the speed using those encoders. So it does exactly the same thing, it's just you're not seeing the impact because it's not threaded up. So it doesn't matter, the stitch regulation works irrespective of it being threaded up or irrespective of there being a bobbin in the machine.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's a very physical direct motion to influence the speed of the machine. In other words, something that's moving backwards and forwards is the fastest way to get information through to the machine, which is why we love it for these movable Handi quilters. So now when I press start, it'll start sewing at 100 stitches per minute, and then when I move, Here we go, that was a bit of fun. Now what you'll have seen there is as I increased the speed I was moving the machine at, the machine increased the speed as well. So that's set at 11 stitches per inch and 100 stitches per minute. And it just means that when I pause in a design like this, it just sews a couple of extra stitches as well. But more important than that, I would say, is the fact that I know I haven't pressed the off button. So I think for a beginner, this is a really good setting for you. Okay, so beginner stitching, I would say 100 stitches per minute. If you're on the Avante, you're probably at about 1 or 2%. Now, the next setting would be what I would definitely use for, say, pantographs, or where I'm trying to do anything with sharp points. I'm going to increase that stitches per minute to, say, anywhere between 50 and 200 or even 250. If I'm a fast sewer, I might want to go higher. If I'm a slow one, I'll go a little bit lower. Okay, and this is where I do the stars. Pause, 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 pause. So you see, on each of these points, if I had it on precision, I'm going to do that now, let's just go into precision. If I pause on those points, it does this kind of thing. Okay, it wasn't a very good star anyway, but it's actually missed the point. It's gone either side of it.
So yeah, that's a good example. You haven't got a sharp point because it was on precision. So the machiner decided that Liz hadn't moved the machine far enough to put the next stitch in yet.
Yeah, and I changed direction. So it looks a bit of a rubbish star. Actually, it is a rubbish star. Every now and then I do weird stars. I don't know why. So that is the difference between cruise and precision when I've got the cruise at, say, 225. Also, if I'm quilting from the back and I'm doing pantographs and I want really nice sharp points for my pantographs, then that's the setting for you. Anywhere between, referring to my notes, 50 and 200 stitches per minute, but actually I think anywhere between 150 and 250 is kind of good. So on the Avante, I would say 3 to 5%.
Good question from Myri in Darwin.
Oh, good.
Why does her machine beep when she goes at that sort of speed on her Moxie?
Okay, in our settings, we've got things called alarms, and an overspeed alarm. On the Simply, it's in this setting under the tools. And this overspeed alarm is on, and basically, Mari, what's happening is you're sewing faster than your machine. You speed demon, you pedal to the metal person, you. So what that means is it's saying, if you've got it set at 11 stitches per inch, I can't keep up with you, Mari. I just cannot keep up with you. You are going way too fast. So you need to slow down. So if I was to go very fast with this, it just hit it then.
Yeah, so the beep is happening here. If you go up again, so you can see here,
yep,
that when Liz was going too fast, these stitches are much longer than the 11 stitches per inch that she's got set on the screen. So it doesn't do any harm to the machine at all. It doesn't make any difference to the formation of the stitch. It just means you get longer stitches. So you need to slow down a little bit.
Slow down. Yeah, you move too fast.
Now the bigger machines have faster motors and they're capable of you moving the machine faster.
Yep. In fact, if you were to use the Infinity Mari, which is 26-inch stroke space, quite big, and probably not the machine that you would want, but if you were, you'd have a great deal of difficulty outrunning the 3,100 stitches per minute, which is huge. But with the Moxie, you know, it's 1,800 stitches, and it's still a very lovely machine, and it's quite fast, but if you're making that, it's making that beeping noise, that's what it is. Or anybody else who's making that beeping noise. So there we go, that's precision and cruise in terms of having pointy points. In manual mode, I'm going to start at 400 and I'm going to just show you. I have to go quite slowly for 400 to make it look like a reasonable stitch, but if I go much more slowly, they're tiny stitches, and if I go faster, they're bigger stitches. I can increase the speed on my handlebars.
Looks to me as if you've been practicing your one-handed ribbon candy.
Do you know, can I just mention something about one hand versus two? If you've never experimented with one hand, I would recommend you try it. And it doesn't suit everybody, and I'm not saying that I would do it necessarily in manual mode, but if I show you what happens, so this is slightly digressing, but it just, you know, these things flow, don't they? With one hand, you're not fighting the other hand. And I just find it's easier to get more precise. Whereas when you've got two, you're sort of, do I do it with that hand or that hand? You're kind of, I mean, mine are still pretty excellent, obviously, but they're not. You see, I'm definitely finding it more difficult. One hand takes over. My left hand isn't as good, so because I am mainly right-handed person, but you're kind of using one for one bit and one for the other, whereas you are totally in control, Mr. Right Hand, Mrs. Right Hand, or Miss Right Hand.
Makes it a bit more like drawing, I suppose, but we certainly find that our more experienced customers increasingly move to using one hand. So as you get more and more used to your machine, as Liz suggests, give it a try, see what you think.
The other person who uses one hand quite a lot is Hilda van Schadenberg, who is our lovely Handi Quilter ambassador in the Netherlands. And what Hilda does is she kind of paints with the machine, she's got an Avante, and she puts one hand to connect to the fabric. So she'll literally be drawing with it and stitching with it. She does the most amazing thread art. So she'll be painting areas, doing machine embroidery to knock it back. I mean, this is nothing, obviously, but... Okay, so if you were doing that with two hands, your connection to the fabric would be a little bit lost. People who've done a lot of work on domestic machines might find that technique helpful. Right, a couple of other things about rulers. When we're doing ruler work, we're going to be in regulated mode, or we're going to be in cruise, but we want it between 50 and 100. I'm sorry, I'm doing this at an angle, so it's not. There we go, 50 or 100 or 75, somewhere like that. Because what that does is when you're doing ruler work, you want to have the ruler, the ruler work, you want to stay with the needle in the down position, but what you don't want to do is be starting the machine and have to be fighting in precision mode with the needle in the work. If you suddenly go. If it's in cruise at 50 to 100, the needle will start to come out the work and you can then just do your rulers.
Let's do that again, Liz, and I'll zoom in on the needle this time.
Let me show you. So this is precision. So it won't move until I move it. But that means that the needle's down. And if I've got a ruler here, it's going to feel like I'm fighting against it and suddenly it moves. Yeah? And it's very stop-start. If I have it on the lowest setting, which is 50, on cruise, it just means it's coming out of the work, and you'll find that for ruler work, that is an ideal setting. You see, it just flows. I'm not having to fight. As soon as I start moving it, the needle comes straight out of the work because it's already doing it almost 1 a second. If you prefer, go slightly faster, so it's on 75, so it'll be coming out slightly more than 1 a second, or even 100. Just experiment with that.
It really does make it a lot easier to get started when you're using rulers.
Yeah. Now I'm going to show you as well a nice little method that we have for using a combination of cruise and stitches per inch. Just to explain, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my stitches per inch to say 12, and I'm going to set my cruise speed very high so that when I pause, it's doing a lot of stitches. Now on this machine, it goes up to 900. I'm going to put it up to 900. So what that's going to do is when I pause, it's going to do 900 stitches per minute.
That's fast.
That's very fast. Maybe I'll knock it down a bit, actually. That's quite fast. Let's put it at 600. We'll go up to 800 in a moment. Now, or 900. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a little leaf. I'm going to do a little stem inside it, and then I'm going to do some filler. And I can do that all without changing any of the settings. So this is how we do it. There is my 12 stitches per inch. So that's step one. I only stopped so I could explain it to you. But now I'm going to do the stem. Okay, so now I've done a stem within it. I'm now going to knock back all of these bits around it. And all I do is just go a bit slower.
And these are the settings, 12 stitches to the inch. And when this is going slowly, you'll pause.
And I'm going to increase it now to 800. No, that's not, yeah. Because I'm at an angle, I'm not pressing it down. Little scribble stitch. So I've not changed any settings on this at all.
So for this part of the stitching, Liz isn't looking to have the stitches in even size, it's just scribble stitching.
Yeah. And I probably want to use like the micro foot for this, or an open toe foot, so I can really see where I'm going. There we go. So I need to do a little bit more around here just to knock it all back consistently. But basically what that's going to do is pop that up, and particularly if on the outside of my leaf, I'll just come up here. I just echo that as well. And then I can do some scribble around the outside of this. And that makes that all pop up too. So you see, this is the kind of thing where you can really paint with these machines.
Incidentally, the motor speed of the Simply 16 is the same as on the Moxie. So what Liz is demonstrating here on the Simply 16 is absolutely exactly applicable to the Moxie as well. So Annette's asking,
pops.
Annette's asking what the equivalent settings would be on the Avante.
On the Avante, yeah.
It would still be your 12 stitches to the inch, of course.
Yeah.
And you would have your cruise at 45 to 50%.
Yeah. I would probably start at 30% and just move up until you've got a comfortable speed.
You can change it so that you can find out what's comfortable for you, but that's the equivalent on the Avante.
Mm-hmm. Now the other thing that we can do is, this is also something that you might use for micro stitching or when we're doing things like pebbling. And this is all, again, it's quite a personal thing. So if I just come out of my... So when I'm doing... Get your hand. Whoops, went off that one. So this is 15 stitches per inch. It doesn't really matter because I'm going over and over anyway, but what it's doing is the 300 is providing a lot of smoothness for my stitches. Let's just look at what it would do if I did that, tried to do the same thing in precision at 15 stitches per inch.
You can probably hear it a little bit, but the sensation is that this is a lot less smooth when you're actually moving the machine.
What's weird is, I'm not as good, I'm not deliberately doing that. It just is a bit stop and start. It's weird how it affects you. And if you just zoom in on that, I mean, I'm trying hard, But look at the impact. That's nowhere near as good. I did go off there anyway, but look how much more popped these are. These, I just feel that I can't...
You haven't got the accuracy.
I haven't got the accuracy. It's weird how that happens, but that is what it is. Okay, manual mode, final bit I'm going to do here. Let's just try some in manual stitching. So for this would be when you love a design and you're so into the design that you don't even have to think about it. Okay, so this might be, for me, it's this one.
So
and this one. This is my favorite. And all you're doing is just moving it. And it's so therapeutic.
So that speed there is at 1375.
Sorry.
The equivalent on the Avante is about 60% of your maximum speed. Should we just have a quick look at the encoders here, Liz, and see the impact of me messing around with the encoders, which simulates a sort of real life situation?
Yeah. Let's go into regulated. Oh, works in that way, doesn't work in that way. Oh. Okay, come and have a look. So Pete was unplugging the encoder, but I was still moving the machine. Very long stitch. Some slightly less long stitches, but very irregular.
So what I was doing, it's difficult to have the camera in two places at once, is just slightly unplugging the encoder cable at the back here. So this is the one that's regulating the speed going from side to side. So if you have a problem with your stitching going from side to side, there could well be an issue with the encoder at the back here. If, on the other hand, the problem is with the stitches going in up and down direction, there's some sort of issue with the side Y encoder here.
Yeah, so it could be...
Your little rubber wheel can fall off. That doesn't really normally happen, but this might, for some reason, not be completely down on the side of the carriage.
So this lifts up. You can just pop that back on.
And like most things involving cables, you would always check that the cables are fully engaged as the first port of call.
And on the Simply and on the Avante, there's a little retainer for your grey flat cables, and always make sure that they run underneath this power pod here on the right, where your power goes in. There we go. Now I just wanted to show you the difference between that one and the Amara. It's a more recent model, so the encoder is a little different. It's got the same rubber wheel, which can also come off. And it's got a side encoder here with the cable that's routed and goes into the back. In this section here, this is the one for the Y, and this is the one for the X. And here's our encoder on the back. These actually unplug. So the this could equally come out.
The mechanisms are identical, but the cable design is different.
And they're different on the Moxie as well.
And on the Amara, it's possible that this gets knocked and the cable comes out slightly, and it looks as if the plug is in, but actually you would have a problem with the stitch regulation. So just push and make sure that's fully engaged.
You might wonder what these are. We have them on quite a few of the cables on the machine. There's some thicker ones for the power cable at the back here, And the reason is that all of our machines, as it shows on the back here, these are all CE certified. They're also certified for Australia and Japan, which have got different standards. And there's also the US, which is the laboratories. It's got a crossed-out wheelie bin, which means that it's also, when we import these, we have to report them for recycling. So all of ours have got these certifications, and as part of that process, the certifiers insist that we have these suppressors on them. These suppress the electronic current from interfering with any of the boards inside the machine.
Or any external equipment.
Or any external equipment, so like mobile phones and your PCs and stuff. So when these machines are all certified, they're tested in those environments to make sure they don't interfere with other electronic devices. It's a very important process of importing electronic items into the UK. So just to say, that's how we do it. So the Amara, what we've got here is slightly different. Obviously, you just have one machine, not me moving from one to another. But here we've got manual and regulated, just the same as we had on the Simply 16. And we've got the same symbols. These are the more recent machines. So we've got precision, and we've got cruise or continuous. And again, we can change the number of stitches that's in continuous mode. Here's our stitches per inch, and we can keep going until we get to a basting stitch of 4 inches, and we can keep going up until we've got a stitch of 11 or 12. There is one difference actually on this Amara, which I'm not quite sure why they did this, but it is 600 stitches per minute when we do that kind of leaf type thing. But that's what it is. Needle up, needle down. So that's the kind of settings that I'd have for my Macs. If I wanted to do micro quilting, those little pebbles and things like that, I'd have it in that sort of setting there. So I hope that that has been useful to you. As I said, this is what we teach on our foundation workshop. It's one of the many things that you learn during the day. And it's this kind of level of teaching that I think it's really important, because, you know, these are skills that, yes, you can sew, yes, you know how to use a sewing machine, but actually there's a few things that are a little different about long arm quilting. And yeah, you can go on YouTube videos and stuff, but sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And I think that's where the foundation workshop comes in. If you've used your machine and you've had it for maybe a few months, it's a really good time to come onto the foundation workshop. It's free, it's included within your machine purchase for most people, and it includes a lovely lunch from Pershore Deli. There's another reason to come.
There's one question I saw in Liz about stitch regulation on the sit-down machines. Yeah,
so the stitch regulation on the sit-down machines, the more recent models, which include the Capri, and for the Sweet 16, you've got the add-on of the Insight table that you can also get. Now, what that is actually from magic eyes within the table itself. See, I mean, on the Sweet 16 and the Capri, you haven't got something that you can physically move by moving the whole table or whatever. Prior to that was True Stitch, which was a dongle that you moved underneath your quilt. As someone who's used both systems, I think the True Stitch is fine, but actually if I had a choice, I'd probably go Insight, but it is a more of a considered purchase, as they say.
So with the sit-down machines, the mechanism has to be different. It's completely different from what Liz and I have been talking about, just because you're moving the fabric.
Yeah. Yes, the terminology for the settings is very similar though. So many of the settings that I've discussed today on the Capri are the same. There's no reason why they would be any different. So I would start at about the 3 or 4% to make your stitching smoother, and then work up from there. 7 or 8% is quite a nice place to be on cruise or continuous mode on the Capri. Also, just a note for Capri users, there are some updates to your Capri software. If you need any help with installing those, please let me know. And I can do a little vid. In fact, there probably is a vid, but anyway, I could do a vid. Or we can do Zoom, whichever you prefer. There we go. Don't forget, free postage, over £30. And where will we be next week? You will be down...
I will be away doing some service visits in London.
Yes.
You will be here.
Yes, I will be here. Oh gosh, that means I'm on my own. I have to get Mark to do it with me. He can film, couldn't he? All right, so... I hope that you're having a nice day wherever you are. I'm quite sure that if you're in the UK right now, there are lots of people who will be suffering the same kind of rain we are. I'm glad to hear, Lorraine, that you're not, and that you've got probably a beautiful view from your sewing room. It's such a lovely view. I'm always inspired by your view. If you're not on Facebook, check out Long Arm Learning Curve International if you're from overseas, or if you're in the UK, you can do UK and international. Why not? There's different things on those two groups. We hope we see you either at the Malvern Quilt Show or at one of our training courses soon. Don't forget Telene Jeffrey's class on the 3rd and the 4th of November. It's a really exciting class. Telene won't be over very often, so this will take advantage of this unique opportunity to come over. She unfortunately couldn't come over back in 2020 when we were supposed to be having our academy, and that had to be cancelled for obvious reasons. So this is the next opportunity you've got. So anything else to add, Pete, behind the camera?
Don't think so, no, but I'm not here next week, so you're going to have to find a substitute husband.
No, there is no substitute for Peter Halpin. Okay.
That is the correct answer.
Right, I can hear my phone going. See you later. Happy quilting.